Well, hello there. I want to talk to you about the day it all began. The day that I started this transformation out of dysfunction. Okay. See, it all started earlier that day where my boyfriend walked in the door, and as usual, he goes on the attack. Now, after years of living with him, this was the dynamic. He would walk in the door and he would start looking for reasons to complain. He would start looking for evidence that something wasn't right, like the broom that he might have tripped over on his way in the door, or the chair that was moved out of place, or the dinner that wasn't made yet. And he would just start off looking for reasons to complain. And me, what would I do? I found myself backing up, always backing up, because of course, I want to keep the peace. So I became a master at compromise, at forgiveness, at listening, at paying attention, at keeping my voice down, at saying it in a way that doesn't offend him, at sort of cutting and slicing and dicing the full truth so he doesn't get all twisted and bent out of shape on issues that had no relevance. It was almost as, let's see what I could come up with today to make you feel this way. But on that particular day, I decided, you see, today, not today. So I decided to take him on. So there I was. And within split second, we were at a World War III level of attack. Things flying that way, other flying that way, what he's saying here. And most of it didn't even make sense because I know whatever we were quarreling or fighting about, as a matter of fact, looking back on that particular day, I can't tell you what the issue was. It was so insignificant, so much bullshit, that I sitting here today cannot tell you what the issue that we were fighting about. But on that day, I decided I wasn't backing down. I wasn't backing up. I had my say and I was going to say it. And I was in his face to say it, right? Because I suddenly, all fear has gone because I am in full-blown mode of attack. And we started up on each other. And of course, he said a lot of things that didn't even make sense to me. And I said a lot of things that since then I have come to regret, because in my imagination, not even in my imagination, did I imagine that someday, one day, I would be talking to the love of my life in such disrespect and venom, right? So the fight ended and I went to bed. And no matter what I did, I couldn't calm my brain down. I had so much disruption and angst and anger going on in my head. I felt like my head was going to burst at any moment in time. So I just stayed in there, in the darkness there, hoping for morning to come, hoping for sleep to come. But sleep was nowhere to be found. As a matter of fact, the rage started to grow out of control. the anger when I think of the things he said and the things he accused me of wrongly, and the lack of being able to even listen to what I was trying to say. You know that? To me, that's the worst. It's like, I'm telling you all the evidence. I'm putting it bullet by bullet, but you're so far gone in your judgment that you're not even there where the evidence might be, because you've made up your mind. Ah, that's what it is. That's what it is. It's almost like in every instant of walking in the door, he has made up his mind that he just didn't want to be here. But the poor guy didn't know how to do it. So instead of being honest and having a conversation, his spirit was like I was holding him hostage and staying here or something. Now that's just my going off script here, okay? I don't know that to be true. But I'll tell you, the next thing I know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I can't sleep. And I said, June, you can't sleep. You know what? Maybe the best thing is to get off the bed and go have a cup of tea. But as I reached for the light switch and I turned the lights on, there was a notepad that I always have at my bed head in case I had a dream I didn't want to forget. In case a brilliant idea occurred to me, I would always have that there to document. So I said, you know what? Here's what you're going to do. You are going to put down 20 things that you hold him hostage for. 20 things. But here's the deal. You don't get to hold that in your head once you write it down. You're going to put it down gently on the paper, and you're never going to pick it up again. In other words, you're going to forget that ever happened, because you haven't been able to think rationally for a long time. Your brain is so cluttered with BS and blame and who is to blame and waiting for him to change. And while you're waiting for him to change and fix himself, you yourself is being morphed into this bitter, sad, rejected, hurt person, a shadow of the person that you used to be. No, it's time to put those things down and let it go out of your head, because you need to start thinking, okay? So instead of the tea, I picked up the pen and paper to write my 20 things. And I started writing. But as I started writing, the day's argument was quickly exhausted on the page. But more things started to pop in that some of them I haven't thought of in a while, but they were always there in the back of my mind. Because here's the thing. I lived with somebody who was absolutely never wrong. And because he was never wrong, he could never take responsibility for anything. No matter what it was, he had a distinct way of spinning it and turning it and throwing it to you as a boomerang. You got it now. It was your fault. And no matter how I came to the table, I just couldn't get the result that I needed, which was some level of compromise or understanding or discussion or communication, or, you know, what we look for to make the relationship work. I could never get him, not even to have a discussion, because no matter what time it was never the right time. We had to talk about that some other time. And I waited years for some other time to come. So what did I do? I started keeping scores about what he did here, what he did there, about what he could have done, what he should have done, what hurt me, how come, all of those questions. And every instant, every evidence of betrayal or hurt that I've gone through in this relationship, I put it in my vault and I added another check mark. Now, how many of you know what I'm talking about? You get there because you cannot express your true self. You get there because the person that you hold hostage for all of this thing that they did to you, you can't reach them by talking it out, by discussing, by coming to some compromise. You can't reach them. And therefore, you're always sitting with it up here. So that's where I found myself. So 3 o'clock turned to 4 o'clock, and 4 o'clock turned to 5. And by the time I started to feel the release from this heavy load of BS that I was carrying, I said, okay, you got it. You have enough now. So then I decided to number them. Each sentence was an infraction, more or less. And by the time I was finished numbering, I had over 100 items on that list. I looked down on that list and all I could see is like, what the hell? Wow. Wow. This is what your life looked like for the past 20 years? June, where the hell have you been? It was really an eye-opener of another sort, because instead of getting more angry and more upset of all the things that he did to me, I turned that mirror and I said, wait a minute, my God, wait a minute. If you, June Sennon, hold somebody, anybody as a matter of fact, responsible for this amount of hell in your life for the course of 20 years, how did he experience you? Light bulbs. And I'm thinking, what? What are you talking about? What do you mean how he experienced me? But that question wouldn't fade. It got louder. June, how did you appear in the relationship? Were you kind? Well, my rational self starts to talk. Well, I used to be kind, but he didn't deserve no kindness. And then I said, were you forgiving? Hell no. But he doesn't deserve forgiveness anyway. Oh, the justification starts rolling in. And I said, were you loving? I used to be, but not anymore. So you see, that whole thing started to change. Suddenly, I realized that I too participated fully 100% in this relationship that I call my life. As dysfunctional as it was, I was there. I participated. And you may be asking, oh, how come you're blaming yourself? No, sister. I'm not blaming myself. I'm saying I participated in the dysfunction by not setting up any boundaries, by not having no boundaries, by setting up boundaries and breaking them down whenever it was inconvenience, and he might get upset and you might be upset because now you have to defend some bullshit that you don't like. You participated in your silence. You participated in making excuses as to why you were there. You participated by being okay with abuse. You participated by never standing up for yourself, much more for the relationship that you wanted from somebody. You participated. And you may say, yes, but he did this and he did that and he did this and he did that. And everything is true. That doesn't take away his culpability from the dysfunction, because the truth is, for most of the years, I could honestly stand and tell you that I didn't trigger the bullshit. I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. I didn't do things that I didn't want done to me. He did. He created most of the havoc and dysfunction. He did. So I am not letting him off the hook. No, what I'm doing is suddenly standing, taking back my power, standing in integrity of what I would like my life, and accepting that I helped build this relationship that didn't serve me not one little bit. See? The thing is, at the end of the day, I had to acknowledge that in order to fit so nicely and comfortably, as dysfunctional as it was my default mode of being okay. I had to come to terms with that fact, that in as much as I would like to blame him for victimizing me, I gave away my power. And him, he took that which was given to him on a platter. He didn't have to beat me every Monday to get his way. He didn't have to lay a hand on me, but he got his way. So in a way, I too was complicit in my response and my allowing him to take advantage of me, because I refuse to see, to accept the relationship as it was, because I was so hell-bent on what it should be, never sitting long enough in reality to what it actually is. Now, how many of you have found yourself in exact the same situation? You want him to change. You want him to fix himself. You want him to adjust a little more. If only he could see me. If only he could sit down and have a good conversation. If only he could appreciate all the sacrifices that I'm doing on his behalf. Look at me, for me. And he doesn't appreciate me. If only he could smile at me the way he smiles at everybody else. If only. You see, that's where I was. That's the energy that I had that allowed me to exist so close to the fire of dysfunction. I gave up my power and he took it. That was the dynamic of the relationship. And it only came full blown after I looked down at that list of over 100 items that I could knock out in a course of 2 days, or 2 hours. To say, look at all the evidence I have, look at all the evidence. I needed to stop. That list became what I called my mad woman's list. But it wasn't the end of the story. Actually, it was the beginning of the shedding of my covering of dysfunction. Because after I looked at this, I realized that in order for him to have so much power over me, I reneged on the responsibility to protect me, to hold me in high esteem, to put me first. I put him first. And I spent 20 years catering. I had no time to look in, to see what makes me tick, to see what makes me happy, to set up some boundaries for myself. I was a yes girl in all its glory until I look at that list. Because guess what happened next? I could no longer blame him for everything. I could no longer hold him responsible for my happiness. That's what happened. And so, after that day, that was the beginning spark that crumbled the relationship to the end. Because I learned to articulate the word no. For so many things in our life together, I said yes to when I had no business saying yes. I learned to stand up for myself. I learned that compromise doesn't mean it's a one-man show, that he gets to benefit from compromise always. I learned that compromise means you bring something to the table, he brings something to the table, and together you make the soup. Not you bring everything. That's not compromise. Ladies, I bring this to you because that's the story of June. It's the story of Gemma. It's the story of Marcia. It's the story of Susan. It's the story of Gloria. How many of us sit there stranded in our lives and has given up the power to the other person and wonder why they took it? When you weren't willing to stand up for yourself, but now you want them to treat you properly and stand up for you. No, always remember, somebody with power, don't give it up because it's unfair to the other person. No, no. If you look back on history, you don't have far to look. People with power don't just hand it back over because it's unfair to you. You have to get up and fight for it. You have to take back your power. And in my case, I say, take back your pum-pum power. In order for things to change, you must change, not him. But that was the first unraveling of my relationship dysfunction. So I want you now to start thinking in terms of where along the way did you say yes to circumstances you should have said no? Where along the way did you say no to circumstances that you should have said yes? Where? If you don't like your relationship the way it is, I challenge you to start looking at how you might be contributing to its demise. I thank you, and I look forward to digging deeper into our dysfunctional narrative and what we can do to dislodge and take back the power that you've given away. Thank you.